One of the advantages of component-based architecture is that your app is split up into individual self-contained components. And as you have already learned, these components can be used to build powerful UIs based on reusable components of code. In order to create a fully functioning React app, you need to create a collection of components. But with the app broken into several different components, you might be wondering, how do you locate and integrate them all into your app? In this video, you'll learn about the concept of modules and how to manage your React components by placing them in a components folder. Finally, you'll explore the structure of the import and export statement. As a developer, you often need a way to use and reuse components that may have been defined elsewhere or created by someone else. For example, do you recall the concept of modules in JavaScript? Modules are standalone units of code that you can reuse again and again. Being standalone means that you can add them to your programs, remove them, and replace them with other modules, and everything will still work. Well, in React, you can make use of this JavaScript feature to separate your components by placing them in their own file. Then you can use the import and export statements to make the files communicate with each other. The export statement is used to make a module available to another module. It helps to think of every JavaScript file as a module. Then in order to make the functions and variables available to other files, you need to export them, which makes them available via the import statement. In JavaScript, there are two types of exports: default exports and named exports. The default export is used when the function name is the same as the file name, and named exports are used when you want the function name to be different from the file name. At this point, you may be wondering, what is the difference between modules and components, since they are both essentially just JavaScript files? And you're right. While they have similarities, it can help to think of a component as a single part or small piece of functionality, like a button. Then you can think of a module as something that's larger than just one component, like a series of components. This technique of splitting your code into several modules is known as modular programming, and it complements the component-based architecture of React. To help you understand this better, let's explore the following scenario. Suppose you're a developer currently in the process of building an application with React, and there are several components that need to be included in the app. Some of the required components have already been created by your fellow developers, so you need a way to import them into your app. To do this, you need to use the operation known as importing. And in React, you import components into your application using the import statement. You may have already noticed the import statement in the default index.js file, where the app component is rendered. In React, to import a component, you use the keyword import, followed by the component name you want to import. Then you use the keyword from to specify the location of where the component is located. You need to use a file name sequence, such as a dot, / before the file name, but the file name extension is not required. Okay, so now you know about the syntax of the import and export statement. Let's explore how you can structure your component in React. Remember that a component is essentially just a JavaScript file. React doesn't have strict rules on how you put files into folders. However, there are a few common approaches you may want to consider. One approach is to place all components in a folder named components. This allows you to structure your projects by grouping similar files together. For example, suppose you are building a payment page for an e-commerce app. The page contains 3 sections that will each be represented by a component in React. First, a header section using a component called header. Then, a payment section using a component called main. And finally, a sidebar using a component called sidebar. Each component will be called and have its contents returned to the root component of our application, which is app.js. In this video, you explored the concept of modules and the structure of the import and export statement. You also learned how to manage your React components by placing them in a components folder.